Welcome to the Power of Her podcast. I'm Dawn Sinkula, and I'm so glad that you're here. So grab your coffee or your wine, get cozy, and let's dive in. Today, we have Sierra Stocklin here with us, who is, I'm going to call you a serial entrepreneur, I guess. Someone who has been in the entrepreneurial space since I read teenage years, right?
Yes.
Teenage years, who is someone that is teaching, coaching, training in the e-commerce space, specifically around financials. We're going to have a really good conversation about all things, financials and e-commerce and females in e-com space and all sorts of stuff. But I want you to introduce yourself to everybody. Welcome to the show. So glad to have
Yeah.
you.
Thanks for having me, Dawn. So like you said, I'm a third generation entrepreneur, born and raised in a small business home. And so that was only natural for me. Started my first business at 13. It was a nonprofit acting company. Then I closed that down after a decade, had gotten married, had kids. So I closed that down, started a retail store, a brick and mortar retail store, which I built and franchised.
Mm,
Ended up selling that brand to one of my franchisees. Then I launched a subscription box for boutique retailers and wholesalers, built that, grew it, and sold it in 18 months. And then through that, started meeting people with product and inventory that had the same questions I had once had. Where's all my money going? What
yep.
do I do with all the debt? How much inventory should I have? Those were all the questions of the hour. Never thought I would do any type of coaching and consulting at all, but I've always liked relationship building and I've loved to advocate for the small business owner. And so it just naturally happened that I would, I started having these conversations, put together a beta coaching program, and so forth and so on. And so now I work with inventory-based business owners. A lot of them have an e-com element or they're fully e-com. So
Mm,
Shopify stores or their subscription boxes, or what have you, manufacturers, wholesalers that sell online. And we talk about numbers because I found that when I grew my business, I was growing like many of us do off of top line revenue goals instead of profit goals. And at the
yep.
end of the day, what's the point in making money if you never get to keep any of it? And so that's what I help with.
Yeah, it's great. I love that. That's a great transition into what we were talking about before we started recording with being kind of fearful or unaware
Yeah.
of the numbers and what those look like. And I've got an MBA in finance and worked, for Target and finance and different things. So I have that sort of, let's call it business acumen or that sort of, but that is not natural for a lot of
No.
people in the e-com space in any business, but let's say with ecom specifically. And a lot of business owners that we work with at the agency have started their business out of a passion or a need, or they found a hole in the market that they're filling with their product. And for whatever reason, that's grown or it's taken off or it's gone a different direction than what they originally thought. And now here they are with this business, unsure of how to really market it, which is where we can come in,
Yeah.
but unsure of like the financial pieces of, okay, am I doing well? Am I not doing well? So talk to me a little bit about sort of how, as a newer or maybe not as aware of my numbers type of person, how and what should I start looking at when I think about my business?
Yeah.
What are some numbers that I should know? You talk about profit versus top line revenue. Well, what does that even mean if I'm not even sure what that is? Like, kind of give
Yeah.
me the basics a little bit.
Yeah. So I want to just break down super simply for you financials because this gets very overwhelming. I know it did for me. I didn't understand them. And I had a bookkeeper and accountant for many years. I had several actually at the beginning of my business that made me feel dumb when I asked
Yeah.
questions. And
Yeah.
so I didn't ask questions, or I would say, okay, but I really didn't understand what they said. And I
Sure.
don't want anyone that's listening to feel that way about their numbers. So in the financials, there's really two main pieces to it. There's the profit and loss or a P&L, income statement, they might call it. And then there's the balance sheet. So the profit and loss has five buckets, if you will. So five categories to it: sales, which we all know, right? And
Yep.
then cost of goods sold. So if you sell inventory, it's the cost of the product that's sold to make the sales, and then the difference between those. So if I sold $1,000 and the cost of that inventory that sold was $500, my gross margin would be 500. That's what I have to work with. Then
Mhm.
underneath that, the fourth category is going to be our expenses. So turning on the lights, paying for insurance, people, and paying for Dawn to help you
Yeah.
with your
Right.
marketing.
Right. Exactly.
Yep. So that's going to go in that fourth bucket. So we take our gross margin, subtract what it costs to run our business, and the bottom line is our profit. And we want that to be a black number and we want it to be a positive number.
Yep.
If we have debt, which most of you probably do,
Yep.
it does not show up on a profit and loss.
Right.
So when people come to me and they're like, I made so many sales, I made so much money, where is it? Or I have to pay taxes because I was profitable last year, but I don't have the money. I always ask about their debt because the debt also comes out of that bottom line. So that's a
Right.
P&L. It's super simple. It's just a math problem. This minus that equals that. And then
Yeah.
a balance sheet is going to show us the snapshot in time, the history or the health of our business, excuse me, the health. So a balance sheet is like I can pull it as of August 1st, July 29th, whatever, one day at a time. And it's going to show you at the top your assets. So your cash, anything that you own that you could turn into cash. So your inventory shows up here, your equipment shows up here. And then your liabilities will be at the bottom. And that's what you owe other people. And you want the top to be better looking than the bottom. So we want lots of cash and lots of assets and the least amount of liabilities as possible. So if you're like, I don't know anything about numbers, now you do. So you just
That's
know how that works and
easy.
you're good with that. Yeah. And it's just a simple math problem. It's just how the numbers are recorded.
Right. And I think that the way that you just explained it in, 5 minutes or less gives people great hope that it doesn't have to be overly complex, right? Like if you
Yeah.
can just kind of understand those basic things, you're far ahead of a lot of other people, right? And
Yes. Yes.
and can make good decisions based on that. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the debt thing a little bit because I always get sort of this side eye when I tell people like it's okay to have some debt or debt is part of business in some cases and you have to have some to make some and that kind of thing. Tell me what you think about debt and what you're seeing in businesses right now. Is it like I've
Yeah.
got so much debt I can't pay anything, or is it like I have to have some to be able to do what I need to do? Just kind of talk about your feelings of what debt looks like in a
Yeah.
business right now.
I'm so glad you asked about this. I love this word, debt, because
Mhm.
when you say debt, everyone's like, oh, finally, we can
Yeah.
talk about it. Okay. It's the dirty little secret every entrepreneur has.
Yep.
And the reason that it's a dirty little secret is because we don't understand it.
Right.
So I want people to know where the debt came from. So when you ask, is debt good, bad? Should we have it? Should we not have it? Let's talk about why you have the debt and what it's from. So most often debt comes because we don't understand that bucket of expenses. We don't really know what it costs to run our business. And so we overthink, we think, oh, like, okay, well, it's only going to cost X amount. It costs more. Well, now I need some money. So I'm going to get a Shopify loan. Okay. Or now I need some more money. So I'm going to open up another credit card.
Yep.
If you understand those 5 parts of the profit and loss, and you know that whatever you do with that, it's going to leave you positive numbers at the bottom, we a lot of times don't have to have the debt. So understanding, is the debt coming because you're not managing your expenses? Is it coming because you needed debt to open, right? Like you had to get a
Yeah.
loan so that you could build out your store, right? Like
Yep.
what is it from? And then understanding how we're going to tackle it. So there's different kinds of debt. Of course, we have credit card debt. I have clients that have credit cards, they pay them off every month. I don't really consider that debt, right? So
Yeah.
because they're paying it off, they're using it actually as like the same thing as net 30 would have been in the olden
Yeah.
days.
Right.
Then
Right.
we have, like capital loans. So this would be something like a SBA loan. So maybe, that loan we take out to like launch our business, we pay one monthly payment on it. A lot of times that's pretty cheap debt and we can cash flow because we can budget in that payment. Then
Mhm.
we have those horrible loans that we take out from PayPal and Shopify and those easy to get, like you won't even have to fill out a document. Click this button. We'll give you
Right.
thousands of dollars. Those
Right.
kinds.
You won't
Those are
even
cash.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, you won't even know. Well, I'll tell you, those feel super good when they dump in the bank account. They're cash eating monsters that I don't like. So when I work with someone, we tackle that first because if Shopify is pulling 17% off the top every single day, it sounds good. Like we won't ever have to worry about it, but you can't manage your cash flow. They
Right.
might say, well, up today, that's $5,000. Well, I have rent and I have payroll today. We don't care. We're pulling the 5,000.
Yeah.
So we want to tackle that and get rid of that. And then we like to look at what habits are we doing today that if we don't fix them will contribute to more debt. So I help
Mm.
people like figure out how to maybe refinance or like what that could look like, but only if they'll change their habits. Because I
Yeah.
don't want you taking on or redoing your debt, but then you still don't run a budget. You still buy whatever you want. You still pay Dawn bajillions of dollars, even though she says, stop doing that, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like we have to change the
Right.
habits so we understand what's going on, what caused the debt, and then we can work on how do we want that to look.
And I think you brought up an important point of like sometimes you need to have debt you need to take out a loan in order to start your business, or in e-com cases, a lot of times you need to have the money to buy the inventory
Yep.
initially until you start making the sales. So I don't think that people who have debt should feel like they're not successful because they've taken
No.
a loan or because they've had to, get money. Most people have to have had money to start a business of some
Yeah.
capacity, right? We all put either our own money, we took a loan, we did something, right, to get it started. I think what you're saying about having changed your behaviors and your patterns to be able to
Yeah.
pay that back or to get that back into part of your expenses is critical and important to that. So you're not
Yeah.
anti-debt, you're just anti as it works in the P&L statement, it's got to make sense,
Yeah, it
right?
has to make sense. And we can't just take on debt without understanding why. Like if you say, well, I need more inventory. Okay. Let's say you're established and you say, well, I need more inventory. Okay. Well, why isn't the inventory you have paying for itself? Like, what are your
Yeah.
margins? So it's all about digging into the why. And
Mhm.
then if I make this decision, so I take this debt on, what is that going to look like for cash flow? How am I going to pay that back? Is the interest rate, are the terms good? Or am I just taking these predatory loans because it's like, oh my goodness, if I don't, I can't make payroll. Something is drastically wrong with the inner workings of your business. So you're going to take that on, but 2 weeks later, you're going to have the same issue and now more debt. And so
Right.
that's what I want to help people get away from.
Got it. Good. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the SBA loans because that's been asked of me quite a little bit. And, during COVID, there was the EIDL loans and people got a lot of money for that.
Yep.
And now here we are 4 years later and people are really struggling to pay back those loans. And
Yep.
e-com seems to have kind of gone through and is continuing to kind of go up and down, depending on the economy, and cost of goods are expensive and all this stuff. And now they've got
Yes.
this loan that for some people, is $500,000 or more, and they're struggling to pay it off. Like, what advice or tips or tricks, maybe you're not an EIDL loan expert. I understand that. But like, I know a lot of business owners have this kind of lingering over their head. What advice or
Yeah.
suggestions do you have for people who are in that space who, took this out in the heat of, COVID, concerned they wouldn't be able to survive, and now are still kind of struggling to make this work for them in the right way?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to what I mentioned, like, you have to understand why you took the debt. So, if you understand why, so you can say, "Okay, well, because I couldn't make the sales because I had to be closed." Okay, so then now that you can make the sales, what do we need to make in order to cover that debt service? Or if it's like, "Well, I took it on, it was easy, free money." People will say like, "That was super easy, free money," but your business wasn't running well, like, your margins were not where they needed to be to begin with. We gotta fix that problem, or we're never gonna get out from underneath that debt. And
Yeah.
I think as far as tips, it would be like when clients come to me, they either come to me with one or two questions. Either I have so much money, sales coming in, where is it all at? I can't find it.
Yeah.
Or I have so much debt, I'm freaking out. Like, what do I do about this? So those are the big messes I solve every day. And so the debt mess, we start with the framework that I use for everybody, which follows a profit and loss, and we build it off of our profit goals. So first, let's put your sales goal down. Okay, I want to do 50,000 a month. Great, put that down. Okay, now what's your margin? What is that going to cost you? Well, it's going to easy numbers. It'll cost me 25,000, so 50%. Okay, write down all your expenses. So we write that down. Are you happy with what that leaves at the bottom of the piece of paper? It's a math problem. I
Right.
am happy with it. I'm not happy with it. Okay, if we say no, we go back and we fix the sales, we fix the margin, or we fix the expenses, or a combination. There's levers to pull. So if you
Mhm.
found yourself like, okay, I have this big loan and the payment's $4,500 a month and I'm super struggling, write out your budget for the month. Look at what that's going to leave you with. If that doesn't cover it, you have a problem to solve, and every problem is solvable. So we
Yeah.
can pull levers. Let's look at margin. Let's look at sales. Let's look at expenses. And you just keep pulling those until you say, okay, now I'm left with $10,000 a month, which will cover my loan payment and write me a paycheck. And then that's our plan. And then we run
Yeah.
the play. Yeah.
Yeah. You make it sound so easy and simple, which is good. I mean, that's the intent, right? Is to not scare
Yeah.
people with numbers. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of times we do get scared with numbers, or we just try to avoid them so that we don't have to deal with the fact that, like, I don't know what I'm looking at, or I'm not
Yes.
really sure what this means. And so having somebody, I think, like yourself, to break it down very easily and just to say, like, it is just really a math problem, and there's
Yeah.
levers to pull to be able to make that math problem better,
Yeah.
and you can fix it. And
Yeah.
that doesn't seem so scary after all,
Yeah.
right?
You know,
Like, oh,
I'm working
okay.
with a client right now. He's e-com only. So you know exactly who your audience is. He had a successful business. The last couple years have been harder. It's the same story a lot, like you hear.
Yep.
A lot of
Yep.
people have, right? So
Yep.
sales have gone down. He came to me. We've been working together for 1 year. We've made lots of progress. And he said, you know, I'm super nervous. Do you think this is doable? Because we have a lot of debt that we have to pay off. I said, absolutely. But you're
Mhm.
still running too expensive. Like your OpEx is still too high. There's nothing else I can cut. I was like, okay. So what about your margin? Well, I can't increase prices. Okay. So what about your sales? Well, that's tough. Okay. Well, here's 3 levers. Figure out what your plan is, and then we'll work on it. So he went to the drawing board.
Mhm.
Done. He came to me yesterday. He had this little spreadsheet. It was amazing. And he, one little line item at a time, he went through his profit and loss and his budget that I put together for him. And he said, okay, this I can cut by $50 a month. And this is $1 million business. So these
Yeah.
are little numbers, right?
Yeah.
I can cut by 50. I can increase this by 0.5%. And he put those all together. He said, all of these changes will add up to thousands of dollars a month. So he thought there's nothing else I can cut. There's nothing I can raise. There's no,
Yeah.
until he just said, okay, piece by piece, it
Yeah.
might be $50 here, $100 there, 3% here. It all adds up.
Right.
And all of
Right.
that now is boom, profit for him. It'll service and cover his debt. Now he has a plan. And so he's
Right.
going to start checking off those boxes and making it happen. I'm so proud of him.
I mean, that's amazing. And I think it's important that you know, as a listener, emphasize the fact that sometimes it is just those $50 or those
Yes.
$100. Those little tiny changes add up over time.
Yeah.
And if you had an extra $100 every single month to spend, I mean, that adds up over time. And
Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
pay off a loan payment, or you could
Yeah.
pay
That
down
covers your
debt.
interest. That, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. It's not totally undoable for
Right.
anybody. So that's awesome. So one question that I had somebody ask that wanted me to ask you is, what is a good percentage of margin for an e-commerce business? So if
Yeah.
I'm looking in totality and I'm saying I'm e-com only and I should have a margin percent of XYZ. Now, you can read in a lot of different places that it should be 30, it should be 50, it should be, 75, it should be 125. And it depends on category and all these things. But I think there's kind of a general rule, right? Like,
Yeah.
of you obviously need it to be at a certain point to cover, and so on and so forth. I think it's a little bit like what you're saying, kind of what are your goals? What do you need it
Yeah.
to be? But speak to me about generalities a little bit. So
Yeah.
if I'm in an e-com business and I'm, online primarily, what is a really good healthy profit margin and a good gross margin for me to have in my business if I'm looking at things and just saying, okay, I don't really even know where to start, but is
Yeah.
this
Give me a
good?
benchmark.
Yeah.
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 Is this
So
a
I
good
tell
benchmark?
everyone, our framework when we start to build out a profit plan, I always build it off a 60% gross margin, 20% net profit. So
Okay.
it gives us something to work on, right? And e-com, depending on how many, every time you touch a product, it costs more money.
Yeah.
So yeah, you spent $5 on the shirt, but now you moved it here and then you marked it down and then you moved it here and then you pulled it back.
Yeah.
Every time you touch something, it costs more money. So like you said, margins are different depending on the type of product and how much it costs to operate the business. But start with build out your plan, following a P&L with those 5 buckets: sales, cost of goods, margin, expenses, net profit. Gross margin is 60, net profit is 20. That is an absolutely fantastic place to start,
Yeah.
and then go back and forth from there.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, and I think a lot of people feel like they have read somewhere that they're supposed to be at, 100%, or they're supposed to be doing this percentage or so on and so forth. And so I think having just some framework is super
Yeah,
helpful, and
yeah,
it's not going to be perfect every time. And it's not, always every month going to be a 60/20 kind of split. But
yeah,
even if you just kind of have in your head, like, this is sort of where I'm shooting for, you
yeah.
can pull the
Then you
levers and you can
start.
make it work. Right.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
what we love to do is be like, well, everybody says different things, so I just won't do any of it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a good example.
Right.
One of the coaches that works for me, she went through my program and ended up selling her business, and now she's a success coach for me. She tells a story. I love it. She's like, I wasn't paying myself in my business, and my husband came to me and said, "You need to stop. Like, you have to pay yourself. Like, you cannot work for free." He's like, "Why not?" And I can't remember the number, but it was very low. He's like, "Why don't you pay yourself $100 a month?" I'm just going to say that it was
Yeah.
like $100, and she goes, "I'm worth more than $100," and so I paid myself nothing. You know? And right?
Right.
So then she just
Right.
kept on not paying
That's
herself
funny.
because she's like, "Well, I'm worth way more than that, so I just won't pay
Yeah.
myself anything." And that's what we do. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it might be 63% for you. It might be 59%. It might be 49%. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
right now you're not doing anything that's working. So let's start with the benchmarks that I've worked with lots and lots of
Yeah.
businesses on. Let's
Yeah.
at least start with those benchmarks and then we tweak it, like make that check that box, and then we can converse about what's next.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Do you find that the people that you work with or the people that you're struggling with most, would you say are more, is it male dominated, female dominated? Is it e-commerce versus any other sort of inventory? I mean, is there a specific type of business, or maybe I shouldn't say a female or male, but is there a type that, you find has maybe more aversion to the numbers or doesn't understand the numbers as much? And, or do you find that certain types of businesses are more in debt or unaware of their
Yeah.
numbers?
I don't think any certain type of business. I mean, I have distributors, manufacturers, retailers, brick and mortar, wholesale, e-com, a big wide subscription boxes, a wide
Yeah.
variety. But I work with 99.9% women.
Yeah.
So, yeah, once in a while. So I have the one client I just told you about. I have another client that just signed up. But I mean, over the course of years, it's been so many women. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's because they're attracted to my style of
Women.
coaching,
Yeah.
if that,
Yeah.
or if they like the group that they're in. But I also think that women sell themselves short. We're willing to work for free for a lot longer. We're
Yep.
willing to say, like, my payday will come someday. We
Yep.
feel like stupid when it comes to certain things, right? Like, I could,
Yeah.
for example, me, I'm going to talk about myself. When I was building my business, I knew I could sell. I knew I was good at merchandising, like those things all day long. But the number side, when I went to my accountant, who happened to be a guy, and I asked him a question, he made me feel dumb. I didn't challenge him on that.
Right.
If someone would have said like, "Oh my goodness, Sierra, why are you buying this mix of denim?" I'd have been like, "Well, here's why," and da, 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 you know?
Yeah.
But with
Yeah.
that, I was like, "I don't know. I guess I just don't know." And
Right.
so I think giving women the confidence that I love doing it, like giving them the confidence, you can be the boss of your numbers. You do not need to buy into hot mess mentality. I hate
Right.
that. People are
Me
like, "I'm
too.
such a hot mess." And I'm like, okay, then we're stopping that today.
Right.
Because if
Right.
you say you're a hot mess, that's on you. Like you get
Right.
to decide that.
Yep.
We've just bought it. I think a lot of women have bought into these certain things, right? Or we go the
Yeah.
extreme of like, I'm the CEO of my business. And I'm like, but you aren't acting like one because you don't know what's going on with the money. You're playing
Right.
the store with your store, so
Yes.
it's like all of these terms.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
instead of like, I'm going to be a confident, amazing, bold woman,
Right.
I made it done my goal by the end of my retail business after those some experiences with some different guys, in banking and accounting, that when I went into the bank, they could ask me any question about my P&L and I would know the answer. And when I learned that, I was
It's so
like, bring it
empowering,
on, bring it
right?
on.
Right.
Now, the answer might be an ugly answer, but I know the answer,
Yeah.
right?
At least I
Like
know.
if you
Right.
ask me where all the money's going, I will tell you. I will know it. Like I
Yes.
will never feel
Yes.
dumb in this room again.
Yes.
And I just made that my mission, and I think every woman in business needs to make that her mission. This is your business.
Yep.
You can be smart with your business.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you've made it sound so easy to be smart, right? Like I
Yeah.
think that's part of it too, is that we make it so, or we feel like it's so complicated, right?
Yeah.
And so then we do the avoidance game, like we said, and so on and so forth. And I agree. I hate hearing, "Oh my gosh, I'm just a hot mess," or "I don't know anything that's going on,"
I'm so
or the exact,
confused. I tell my
"I'm so
daughter, do not say
confused,"
that.
right?
Do never,
Right.
never say
Never
that.
say you're confused. "I'm unsure," or
Yes, I'm
I
going
need
to
to
look
figure
for a
this out.
solution. I'll
Right.
find
Right.
someone smarter than me that can help
Right.
me.
That's
Yes.
exactly right. That's exactly what I say to myself too, is like, okay, I may not be the right person to answer this, but I'm going to find somebody else who can do it for
Yes.
me, or I'm going to teach myself, or I'm going to find someone who can help coach me through, what challenges or what things that I don't understand. But I hate
Yeah.
the hot mess mentality. I hate the hustle mentality. I hate the whole sort
Yes.
of like, and then the CEO sort of, what are you doing with your time? I think
Yeah.
is so important because let me ask you this. What do you feel are the top 2 or 3 things that a female CEO should be doing in their business?
Knowing their numbers. You have to pay attention to that. Like, and that might be like, I don't want, stop saying that, Sierra. But
Yeah,
here's the thing, like numbers aren't sexy, but paying yourself is sexy.
right,
Padding your bank account is sexy.
right.
Like, so they have to know what's going on with their numbers. And if you don't know that well, pick one, start with one. So I
Yeah,
just say, like, when you fall in love with someone, right, you learn everything about them. Fall in love with one number. Maybe it's your margin. I'm going to make it my mission 2024, the rest of 2024. I'm going to know everything there is to know about my margin. Just fixate and focus on one thing, right?
yep,
They have to learn to manage their time. You
yep.
have to manage your time. You are the boss of your time. Stop letting other people spend your time for you.
That's
So
so good.
important. And then I think learn how to have courageous conversations. If you can manage your numbers and know your numbers, manage your time and have courageous conversations, you will be leaps and bounds above anybody around you in small business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, you've been doing it a lot longer than I have, but I've been doing it for 10 years in my own. And I work with, like you do, with other business owners. So I'm not just
Yeah.
solely responsible for my own business. I'm working with other business owners. And I can tell you, I actually did an interview earlier today, and somebody had asked me, like, what is the one thing that you see the most successful CEOs or e-commerce female CEOs doing? And I said almost verbatim the same thing. They understand their numbers and they do
Yep.
CEO things, right? Like
Yeah.
understanding where my time is going, understanding where my money is going, and understanding that I'm in control of my business and don't do the
Yeah.
things that aren't producing or money making activities, is what I always
Yeah.
call it. Like if you're
Stop
working
making
on your
cute
website,
graphics on
like,
Canva
like,
because it's
is that
not
really doing it?
stressful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Those aren't the things making you money. Like, I
Yeah.
promise you, nobody has looked that hard at your Canva graphic for the amount of time that you have spent,
Yes.
and you could have learned your numbers, or you could have understood something differently or made different choices. And so I think that's one of those things too, that it's like, sometimes we don't know what to do as a CEO. And so we just do what feels natural, and numbers aren't always the
Yeah.
thing that feel most comfortable to people. So they
Yeah.
try to avoid it at all costs and do
Yep.
website, Facebook ads, try to do, the things that I think are going to make me lots of money.
Yeah.
And then you
And
could
that's
just
why
look
I
right
think
in front
it's
of you.
good. And that's why it's good to have someone like me on your
Yeah.
team
Yeah.
because we'll demystify it and we'll hold you accountable to doing the right work. I
Yeah.
talk about that in my book, Inventory Genius. I open with like, I've yet to meet an entrepreneur that's not willing to do the work. They're just not doing the right work and they
Yeah.
don't know what the right work is. So find someone that can help you understand what is the right work, the work that actually creates a paycheck and produces results.
Yeah.
And then if you have time and you struggle with your time, struggle with accountability, follow through, hire for that. Like
Yeah.
I have such a gamut of clients. I mean, I have some that are very self-motivated and they're like, just show me the things and I'll do them. But more often than not, I have people that are like, this is super hard. I want to avoid it. I don't want to do these things. And so we set up rhythms like, okay, put your numbers in on Monday and I will look at them. And if
Yep.
they're not there, I will ask you why, you know?
Yeah.
And then we actually get the work done. So you can bring those people to your team where you
Yeah.
have weakness too.
Yeah, I think that's important to recognize that you don't have to be the expert in everything. You just need to surround yourself with the right people who are,
Yeah. Yeah.
and know what questions to ask and know who to go to for the answers and where to go
Yeah.
for those answers. Because I think a lot of times, women in particular, we have a tendency to feel like we should be doing everything. We're running our houses and our kids and our lives and the business and all the stuff. And if I don't know what this means, then it means I'm a failure. And
Yeah.
instead, I kind of look at it as like, well, I'm not really good at a ton of things. So I just try to hide, like, I couldn't do graphics, or not, like, I'm not a very creative graphical type of
Yeah.
person, right? And so I don't try to sit there and force it all the time. I hired somebody who's really good at graphics, who
Yes.
loves it, and that's her thing. And it takes so much pressure off of me, and it just
Yeah.
makes me feel empowered to know that I don't have to put that pressure on myself. And
Yeah.
so I love what you said. Just find somebody, an accountability partner, a coach, a marketing agency, a
Yeah.
financial coach that can really help you understand where you're missing out on some opportunities. So
Yeah, for sure.
you make it sound so easy. Well, as we kind of wrap up here, I want to ask you sort of what do you see the future of e-commerce kind of turning into this fourth quarter and into 2025 based on, you kind of get the behind the scenes of a lot of people's businesses and where they are at and some of the struggles and challenges. What do you think are some of the wins and some of the maybe things we should be looking out for as we go into fourth quarter and early 2025?
Yeah, I think simplification, I work with my clients on this a lot. It really goes hand in hand with time management and financial management. When we're stressed about money, we complicate things. And
Mm,
complication is the enemy of profitability. Complexity is. So simplifying things down. And I think e-commerce that's going to win is e-commerce that's very simple. So I'll
yeah.
give you a story example in closing. I bought my husband a ticket for Billy Joel at Notre
Mm,
Dame for
yeah.
Christmas. I was so excited because I'm not a very
Yes.
good gift giver. So I was like, this I scored.
This
So
is a
we
good
went to
one.
the concert. We walk up. I'm like, we'll get a couple fun drinks and some popcorn, whatever. We'll get ready, sit down. And we get up there and I realize they have beer everywhere. It's a stadium, it's Notre Dame Stadium. I don't like beer. Like, I just don't like it. So I was like, oh, that's really disappointing. I guess I'll have water.
Yeah.
And then I look over and I see a vodka lemonade stand. Perfect. That's what I'll have. That sounds great. So I go over there, and as I'm wrapping through this really long line, I'm like, this is a coaching client story because they sold one product, one size, one price. It was so simple. And they didn't care that there were no beer drinkers that were coming to their stand. They didn't care that we were missing out on the wine cooler people and the Coca-Cola
Right.
people. They're like, there are plenty of people who just want vodka lemonade, and we
Right.
will sell vodka lemonade really, really well over and over and over and over. It's boring, but it's profitable. And I
Right.
see for e-com, like, get boring so you
Yeah.
can get profitable. Find that one thing, like, stop trying to sell all this stuff and all that stuff and so many things and all these vendors. So overcomplicated that your customers are like, I don't even know what you are and who you are and what you
Yep.
serve.
Yep.
The ones that are very simple and can hone in on exactly who they are and what they sell, I think are the ones that are going to win.
Yep. I hear you. I always say on the outside of it, looking in as a customer trying to buy something, confused people don't buy. So don't
No,
make it confusing for someone. Don't have too many choices. Don't have too many colors. Don't have too many things. Don't have too much stuff
all
because
these
they don't know.
categories and
Like I
scrolling
have
pages and
sizes and this and every color and every shirt style and short sleeve and long sleeve and all the
yep,
sleeves and people don't know. They will shut down if they get confused. And I think that's such good feedback on the backside of it as well is like keep your business as simple as you possibly can. Get
yeah,
really good at one thing and make it super profitable and then go to the next and then
yeah,
go to the next. But even through third and fourth quarter, I always tell my clients in marketing, what's the one thing you want to sell? What's
yeah,
the one thing we're selling during we're not going to sell the whole store. We're not selling
yeah,
everything. We're going to sell the one thing that has the best margin, that is a
yeah,
good seller, and that we know we've got plenty of inventory for. So what is
yeah,
that thing? And just keep it simple. And
yeah,
you would be shocked at how, let's say, easy your business can become when you take out so much of that distraction and that
yeah,
stuff that isn't serving you well anyway can just make it so much heavier. So that's
yeah.
awesome. Okay, so keeping it simple, everybody.
Yes.
I
Keep
love
it
that.
simple.
I love that. Well, I know there's going to be tons of people that are going to want to work with you and want to find out more. You've got a book, you've got courses, you've got coaching, you've got all sorts of stuff. Where can people find out about you and all the programs that you offer?
Yeah. So they should just go to my website, sierrastockeland.com. And I have a quiz, which we all love a quiz, right? Tell me who I am and what I look like and all the
Yes.
things.
Yes.
So
Love
take
a
the
good quiz.
quiz. Yep. So it'll just ask you, like, what are you most stressed about? It'll kind of ask you a few fun questions about your business. And from there, it'll tell you, okay, here's how Sierra can best help you where you're at today. So take the quiz, and then we'll get you all the things you need.
Awesome. Well, we will link that in the show notes so everybody can go there right away, take the quiz, and then, she's got a book and some other stuff. So go check her out on all her social media channels. We will also link those below. And it's been so great to talk to you. And
Yeah,
I think
thank
you
you.
have demystified a lot of things for us around numbers and kept it very simple and easy. And that's exactly what I wanted from you today. So thank you so
Good.
much for
Oh,
that. I
good.
appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having me. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
appreciate it. Thank you everybody for listening. And if you have more questions for Sierra or you want to hear more about a specific topic, please leave your comments in the show notes below and we will get those to Sierra and we will make sure that she comes back if we need her to for an encore presentation asking specific questions. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.